Derek, mate, lots of stuff to talk about. I am really just chuffing at the bit to get into today's show.
It's going to be great. A real doozy happened in the last few weeks.
Doozy?
Where a couple of comedians, Vovan and Lexus, were posing as Zelensky. And what they did is they managed to get an interview with Christine Lagarde, the president of the European Central Bank of all people. And her confession was quite interesting in regards to them pretending to be Zelensky.
Oh, come on, tell me more.
The thing that I find hilarious about this is how they managed to keep it going.
Borat style, right? It's got to be.
It's really, really interesting. So we've got this queued up, and I think it's worth a listen.
Well, I have a question about. I'm also a good user of electronic money. So my question: you're introducing the electronic euro, as I know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
How can switching to an electronic currency help?
Well, two things. Number one, it will be decided in October. So we are preparing the ground. We want to be ready. We want to be trained, but it will not be decided until October 23.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm personally convinced that we have to move ahead is a situation like the one we are in now. We are dependent on the supply of gas by a very unfriendly country. I don't want Europe to be dependent on an unfriendly country's currency. For instance, I don't know, the Chinese currency, the Russian currency, the whatever. Or dependent on a friendly currency, but which is activated by a private corporate entity like, Facebook or like Google or anybody like that.
I'm a user of Bitcoin too, so I had bought it when it started, and I hope that it also will work through the special system. And I know there are many protests in Europe against the electronic euro. What is the reason?
It's the beauty of Europe. It has different positions. If you ask in Northern Europe, for instance, in the Netherlands, they're quite happy to see the e-euro coming. If you ask a young German man, he'll say, yeah, fine. As I said, I don't want Meta, Google, or Amazon to suddenly come up with a currency that would take over the sovereignty of Europe. I don't want a foreign currency to become the currency of trading within Europe. So we have to be ready.
No, the problem is they don't want to be controlled. They don't want to...
Yeah, but you know what? Now we have in Europe this threshold. Above 1,000 euros, you cannot pay cash. If you do, you are on the grey market. So you take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail. But the digital euro is going to have a limited amount of control. There will be control. You're right. You're completely right. We are considering whether for very small amounts, anything that is around 300, 400 euros, we could have a mechanism where there is zero control. But that could be dangerous. The terrorist attacks on France back 10 years ago were entirely financed by those very small anonymous credit cards that you can recharge in total anonymity.
Well, boys, I'm not often lost for words, but I was so lost in that. I don't know. To me, it kind of seemed like, a blueprint for 1984, quite frankly. She's been doing reading. I mean, that's important. She's expanding her mind. Okay.
There are four observations from this fascinating admission. It's one of those ones you listen and you go, okay. Number one, the rumors were... The rumors are true that they plan to have a CBDC, a centralized token, digital currency, has been confirmed. That they plan to roll that out as October 2023. It's interesting to see who she sees as friendly and unfriendly nations in this.
I thought that was a really interesting comment. Yeah. I'm so sick and tired of hearing, like, oh, this love affair with Ukraine. Ukraine, okay. And having said that, I've got a couple of friends from that part of the world, right? And they consider themselves very much Russian Ukraine.
They are cousins, and that's the point.
Well, I was about to make that point. Exactly. Actually, truth be known, that's exactly what was said. Literally, their cousins are on one side of the border and they're on the other. So it's very much from the same part of the world. They use the same language, all of that sort of thing, right? So I just find, for a long time, though, let's face it, places like Belarus, places like Ukraine have been used for money laundering. They have been used as the place where very, very, very insanely filthy, wealthy people have been cleansing their money. Simple as that. And,
Rich or morally?
Morally corrupt, yes, and rich, both of those two. So I find it, I just find it, I don't know, it's frustrating to see everyday people, citizens all over the world, who've just fallen for this propaganda that, we must save Ukraine. Ukraine's wonderful. Look, yada, 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 yada. I'm sure the people of Ukraine are wonderful. As I say, the people I know are absolutely fantastic people. But Zelensky, come on, absolutely. Question everything.
Well, we questioned this ages ago. Why is Australian taxpayers' money going over to support this? And it's really, many people are interpreting it this way, that it's NATO using the Ukrainians to do their dirty business, and in terms of trying to weaken Russia through that. Getting back to what she said, I think what's fascinating here from Christine Lagarde is that she reveals her fear of some other entity crowding the playing space and issuing a currency, and she repeats that. It's playing on her mind. I saw footage of her some time ago too of getting cut out of the game, and that's really interesting because he or she who controls currency controls the game, has power.
Spot on.
And so that's something that she labels. We don't want a Facebook, we don't want a Google to control that commercialized entity. And of course, you'll remember that Zuckerberg did have plans to roll out a currency at one point.
Absolutely.
In terms of Facebook and people integrating and using that was kind of shot down by the SEC, I think. But it was very interesting to see that the game is, hey, you're crowding our space now. And she keeps repeating it. I think the other fourth observation I came out with that is that she, without admitting it directly, but yes, sure, and kind of dismissing it, she admits that there is overreaching power using this technology by governments and banks potentially in doing that. I think what's interesting here in today is looking at where Europe is positioned here in this whole conflict and that. I mean, they're not really calling the shots when it comes to the Russian-Ukraine conflict here. They really have fallen the cue from what NATO has said, what the United States has done in terms of the Democratic administration there. Trump, of course, is saying, man, I would sort this whole conflict out in 24 hours. You'd get on the phone and say, we're having a meeting. We're having a meeting. Well, it'd be on a plane and it would be sorted in 48 hours.
A spine. We'll press the button.
That's right.
And not only that, but he knows how to do a deal as well. He's a businessman and he's written a book, with the art of the deal. He knows how to negotiate.
And let's face it.
And I believe him. He would solve it in 24 hours.
Well, it's true.
I think he solved a lot of problems in the Korean conflict, in the sense that I think a lot of them would want to go to war over that situation, or heighten the conflict there. He said, "Hey, instead of going to war, let's make money. Let's make Korea a huge attraction for the rest of the world. Let's build some beautiful golf courses. Let's make you a centerpiece." That's smart.
He understands the importance of contracts.
Sure.
And what is a peace agreement between two countries? It's a contract on how to behave.
Of course.
So you got to understand, why did Russia, and this is one of the reasons why I always say the why is sometimes more important than the what.
Sure.
Why did Russia invade Ukraine? Because Ukraine got asked to join NATO, which is against the peace.
And the whole idea, of course, Ukraine was supposed to be the buffer zone, effectively. Right?
So this wasn't a war started by Russia. No matter how much the media portrays it as a war that was started by Russia, it was actually started by NATO.
Well, look what's happened in the last sort of few days with all information coming out about the fact that there are American troops on the ground in the Ukraine. Okay,
and they also said they'd never let tanks or equipment
spot on
Ukraine. Haven't they sent a heap of planes and tanks?
Absolutely,
over there
spot on. Absolutely. So make no mistake, this is a quasi-war. That all they're doing is literally using Ukraine as a front. NATO, America, is at a war with the USSR, with Russia. Boy, am I showing my age. But this is what's going on, and I'm so sick of the propaganda. I'm so sick of the lies about it, and I'm cannot believe how complicit the corporate media is in this entire process. These are people's lives.
Listen,
Okay,
they're a part of it.
exactly.
So, no, I'm really. Anytime mainstream media says, "Oh, these guys are the bad guys," I always start looking elsewhere.
Thoroughly agree.
So.
Now, gentlemen, shall we go for another sound bite?
People who work numbers, I am giving you free advice that those of you who are holding dollars, you shortly might go into losses. You better do what you must do, because this market is going to be different in a couple of weeks.
All right.
You might be wondering who that
I was
was.
about to say, talk us through that one.
President William Ruto of Kenya warning about US dollars. Now, we've been talking this, that appeared on Flourish TV. You can check their YouTube channel. We'll put that in the show notes. But yeah, it's really interesting to see that starting to creep through too. Now, that's a bit of a heads up. We've been talking a lot about the US dollar, the integrity of it. When you hear a president of a nation come out and say something and practically give financial advice about a currency,
I hope he's qualified for that.
you've got to start taking note.
You really do.
Of what's going on there. What's interesting about that too is what Trump had to say about the US dollar.
Our currency is crashing and will soon no longer be the world standard, which will be our greatest defeat, frankly, in 200 years. There will be no defeat like that. That will take us away from being even a great power.
So there you go. So Trump's warning on the collapse of the US dollar as well, and saying that will be the biggest catastrophe we've had in 200 years financially.
You'd have to agree with it. Absolutely. Yeah, that will actually, it'll remap the world forever financially. No doubt about it.
So what I've been saying over the last few months about what is going on, these are significant things as far as the financial world is concerned, in terms of CBDCs, in terms of the US dollar. When you start having political leaders of the notoriety of Donald Trump, the 42nd president of the US, saying things like that, it gets your attention. And here is a man who knows business as well.
No, he's a common criminal. I mean, he doesn't even know how to fill in his paperwork, right?
He pays other people to do his paperwork.
Yes, just my tongue could not be any further in my cheek. I think I just, licked the couch. That's how far into the cheek it is. It is so ridiculous when you're watching, whether you're a Trump fan or not. I mean, people talk about Trump. Okay, I remember years ago someone said about your fantasy dinner party, who you invite, right? And people saying they'd invite Trump. I wouldn't, because he would drive me nuts. Okay, but you've got, at the same time, like, as much as he drives me nuts, and you've got to be impressed, and you've got to actually understand that what he's saying is fact. Fact is important.
You don't become the president of the United States just on a whim.
No, you don't.
He's a smart guy, and he was outside the political system. I used to go to so many barbecues where people would say, wouldn't it be great to have a businessman running the country?
How often have you heard that in your life?
You got it, and then the world said, oh, we don't like it. Why? Because they actually came in and disrupted, which is exactly what entrepreneurs do. Very good entrepreneurs go in, disrupt issues, say, we can do it better, so we're going to go this way. That's what he did for a nation. And I think, I said that throughout Trump's presidency. I said, whether you love him or hate him, he is a smart man.
Yes.
Secondly, you've got to look at, don't listen to what he says, listen to what he does. Watch what he does. His actions speak louder than words, and what he got done in his administration was just extraordinary.
It certainly was absolutely outstanding. And as I say, so many people just judge him on the man, the way he carries himself, all of that.
Or his Twitter account.
Okay, man.
No, and that was entertaining.
Oh, absolutely.
It was the best thing Twitter ever had going. Why would you shut that down? It was just crazy.
Yeah. But, exactly. How good was he for business, right?
Yeah.
And, certainly CNN got a lot of business out of him, because without him, they've got no business anymore. Look.
And by shutting him down, they created a competitor called True Social now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, now, gentlemen, time for a break, if we can. All right. It's Edge Radio Australia, the Greater Wealth. Now, let's talk about money. Let's talk about the greater wealth. Let's talk about finding your life purpose. You got some info here about the big R word, recession.
I want to geek out on you for a little bit.
Here we go. Here we go.
Can we go there? I've been pretty gentle.
We have arguably one of the biggest geeks listening in on Twitch at the moment. So
okay, cool.
We'll see if we can.
This is right up her alley.
All right, we'll see if we can. So, I'm going to try and break this down in the most simplest ways. All right. So one of the ways that the R word recession is kind of defined. It is defined as two economic quarters followed back to back with negative growth in terms of GPD for a nation.
Look, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to pick on you here. That's not wrong. I mean, that's wrong. So, this is not wrong. I've got to remember what's science now. Okay. Now I know that's been the standard. That's been the standard for many years.
That's how it's been
But
defined.
science
no.
it depends on your feelings, Aaron.
Exactly.
Don't you know
And
that
the
now?
Biden feelings, they found that even though it happened month after month after month, quarter after quarter after, apparently no, it wasn't recession. So I'm sorry, mate, you're wrong. Okay.
Thanks for sorting me out. I'll go back to school now.
Or speaking facts. Yeah.
So that's the technical way it's defined.
Yes.
2 quarters back to back, right? And technically, Australia had one in 2021. It went really under the radar.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you actually look at it, it was quite amusing because it didn't have an effect at all. So I said,
is that because our economy is so shit at the moment that we don't know the difference between a recession and a boom time?
There's many theories on that one. Look, it was a case of it went under the radar, and I was asked to present in November last year on. Will Australia go into recession? My attitude was kind of like, we've done it, we've got it over and done with, let's go to lunch. So,
do you want sushi, Carol? Yes.
I think I was actually at that one. Yeah.
Yeah, you were there at that presentation.
There you go.
Here's the interesting thing. So that's how it's defined as a recession. Now, I want to go even deeper into that. This is how traders, this is how economists look at terms of is one on the horizon. They look at indicators, and we call this the inverted yield curve. All right.
Sounds exciting.
It's really fascinating. So what it is
For you, maybe.
yeah. Well, if you can use this to go, hey, a recession's on the horizon, is that a cool thing?
Oh, it's so cool. Tell you what.
Because you can go, right, how do we avoid this? How do we get a defensive mode, or how do we see opportunity?
Garrick, you are one of the cool kids, mate. I'm telling you right now.
And when you see that, you go, great, let's short Microsoft. Or
Yeah, good idea.
That's kind of how we think in terms of, right, where's the opportunities of the market now?
By the way, that's not financial advice. Do not, unless you
Yes.
actually do your proper
Call it a joke.
analysis.
There you go.
Don't short Microsoft yet.
That's right. That's right. All right. Not general or specific. So this is how it works. Bonds, not the 007 kind.
No,
all right?
okay.
The bonds. The bond market works like this.
Hang
So
on, bonds,
you would think that the longer, so a bond, what is a bond? A bond is an
they're
IOU.
a set of underwear.
The government says, we owe you money. Here's a note that says basically we'll pay you this amount in interest over this amount of period of time. Okay. Now you can get different time frames on that. You can get the 1-year bond, 3-year bond, 10-year bonds, all that sort of stuff, 30-year bonds. Okay. Now what you'd think is you would get more interest the further you go out.
You think
right?
so, right?
That's what normally happens. But when the interest rates start getting higher for the shorter term ones, the 1-year ones, the 2-year ones, the 5-year ones, it starts to then distort the curve if you map it out on a graph.
Okay.
And we call that an inversion. It starts going the other way.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
And that's one of the indicators that economists use to go, are we about to go into a recession?
Okay.
Now, why is that important? 28 countries have an inverted yield curve right now.
So
28
I've
nations.
just realized something, and it's really funny because for those who are not watching online, Derek speaks with his hands. So he's doing all these graphs and showing his hands, and he's waving his hands around. And then I just realized, hang on, no one can see that.
It helps me emphasize it. It helps me get it out. All right. Like I'm doing now.
I feel like he's just selling pizzas.
That's it. Mamma mia.
He's from Chicago, so it's perfect. I don't know if that's true or not. But
No,
it's
I'm
funny.
not. No. I'm West Coast. There you go. So looking at the nations, now they've put them in 3 different categories.
Right.
Totally inverted, which means the whole thing's flipped, right?
Okay, you said flipped. Okay,
Partially inverted. And then
So
there's
sideways.
minimally inverted. All right. In other words, that in Australia's case, it fits into the latter category, the minimally inverted. What it means is that the 2-year bond is higher than the first year, but the others are following the pattern that we normally would expect. All right. So it's not a full.
So it's like a speed hump.
A speed hump.
You still do your 60 k's an hour.
Yeah,
Just like,
exactly. Yeah.
Well, you
The
could call
faster
it
you
that.
hit it, the less you feel it. So
Depending on which car you drive. Right. I'm not going there. Right. So I know what you guys are like with cars.
Hello.
So this is really, really fascinating, looking at which nations are there, and some surprises too. For example, totally inverted Singapore fits that category, which is not what I was expecting. A lot of European nations, Finland, France, Netherlands are. New Zealand fits into that category, and of course the United States are totally inverted as well. Canada. Qatar is in that category, which is interesting. So, and Russia. Russia is in that as well.
quick question: how many OPEC countries are in fully inverted?
Look, I'd have to go through all 28.
Because
Sorry, mate, we've got time.
didn't about a month ago, didn't OPEC say they were going to reduce their oil production by 40%?
I don't remember
Was
the
it
40%,
40%?
but I do remember they were doing exactly that. Yeah.
So that'd be really interesting to see how closely linked the oil is to the
bond market.
Yeah, the bond market.
Well, okay, we get back to that whole petrodollar thing of being based in the US, and we're talking about that being weakened, and there's the flow on across the water.
Well, in this mix is what's interesting is that you've got high interest rates and you've got high inflation.
Sure.
Okay. So interest rates are always related to bonds. So that's
Sure.
not a surprise there that there is some distortions in the market going. Inflation's the interesting one because in that mix, you look at a country like our own, Australia, and our unemployment rate is quite steady at 3.5% for March.
Okay.
They're calling this the lowest it's nearly been in 50 years. But the thing is, as Travis will point out to you, when you start diving into unemployment figures, they can be incredibly skewed and make the stats look really pretty.
Let's be honest, it's lying through your teeth.
It's exactly
by
what it is.
selective advertising. So I'm going to throw a question to you, Derek. What is the current participation rate?
It was 6 point something, wasn't it?
You said 6.8. It's a difference of 0.3%,
Yeah.
which is a big change. So what the participation rate is the people who just aren't looking for work.
Right.
So because I homeschool, even though I work for myself, I do not come up as unemployment figures because I'm considered a stay-at-home parent because we homeschool the kids. So we rock up in the non-participating workers. We don't come up as unemployment.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Look, here's the thing that I'm seeing, okay, in a real world term, is that people don't seem to want to work anymore, right? They really
Why?
just don't.
Like,
Well,
seriously,
yeah.
why would you work?
I know.
Just pump out a couple of more kids.
Oh, there's hell of a business involved there. Let's face it. We won't go down that one today.
Yeah.
But I will say this. Okay, look, here we are at Edge, and I've said this before. We would love to have an AE, okay, someone to do sales rep position here at Edge.
Yeah.
Put the word out. No,
Nothing.
you know what?
No
People
one
just
wants
don't
to
want to do it. No one wants to do it, right?
Why work when the government gives you absolutely everything you want, and then you wonder why inflation is going through
Because you
the
feel
roof?
achievement, and you're showing your children that this is the way to go.
But you can only bust your ass and get nowhere for so long before you go, you know what? I'm going to stay at home. I'll do a couple of cashies and I'll get so much more further ahead than if I actually did it properly.
So sad. So sad. Yeah.
I'm noticing, and I'm working on a couple of deals at the moment. I can't give you the full details because it's still very, very concept stage, where there's so many people out there that are actively going out of their way to remove the government out of their life as much as possible.
Yep.
So what happening is all these people, this whole community will not show up in any of those stats.
Right. Yep.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
And I'd want to know what percentage of that community is.
There's no way you could tell because a lot of these people, you send a census person out and say, hey, what do you do for work? They go, stuff.
Yeah.
Like they'll do everything they can in their power to totally remove themselves away from the Australian
And do you blame
Australian
them?
government? No.
Honestly.
Well, here you go. One of the lessons that Stephen Pettit, one of our, my day job, I do video editing for a finance company. One of the presenters there says, always have an exit strategy. And I hate to say this, our exit strategy is to flee to Vietnam, a massive socialist country. I find that we have more freedoms in Vietnam than we do in Australia.
That's terrifying.
And that's where you know the government's seriously stuffed up. So
we used to see Australia as the lucky country as being so
no,
free.
it still is. It still is.
I don't think it is.
Yeah,
I love this country, but I'll tell you right now, we are at war with our own government. Our own government is financially screwing us, but worse than that, socially screwing us.
The biggest problem with that one, and this is again the whole purpose of the greater wealth, so many people don't understand the rules for what they're doing. If you understand the rules and what the government's trying to do, then you can protect yourself and get massively ahead.
Yes.
There's so many opportunities in Australia at the moment, it's not funny, but you need to know the rules. The people who just go in blind saying, no, the government will look after me, they don't get absolutely screwed over.
The government isn't your dad. It's not your mum. It's not there to actually protect you. It's actually there to exploit you.
No, they're your slave driver.
Yeah, they are there to exploit you. That's what they're there for. But I mean, in a perfect world where you've got politicians who actually genuinely care about people and they want to move forward.
Yeah, non-existent, definitely.
Well,
not
no,
WA.
they exist. They exist.
Yeah, just not in WA.
There's a minority, that's for sure. So there you go.
Actually, I'm starting to change my opinion on one of them. Nick Gorin is probably.
He's giving it a go.
I think he'll get disendorsed from the Liberal Party soon.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Because he's not a Liberal member of Parliament.
Well,
Interesting fact, his mother was my French teacher in high school.
Is that right?
Mhm.
Why is
There
it
you
you've
go.
got connection to all these really funky, weird people? Like even
No, I
Dagogo from like Cold Fusion.
Yeah,
TV.
yeah.
Like we just say, oh, this random person, then he all of a sudden rocks up with Melissa McCasey. So if you want to watch the Pfizer whistleblower video, edgeradioaustralia.com.
Yep,
It's underneath
absolutely.
so it is under the subscription section. So you do need to join up at least as a free member.
Yep.
To get access to those videos.
Which, by the way, is going really well. People are joining all the
Hang-
time. So
Who
Great.
organised Julian Assange's father's interview? Was that you or?
that was me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you actually did something.
Oh.
You walked into that one.
You're right. I'm completely useless. Do nothing. That's right. For 60 hours a week, but that's all right. No, look, I think things are going really, really well, and I think that it's important to, from the point of view of, we've got a position here where we can share such information that's not being heard, and your great message about finding your life purpose. We'll keep going back to it because it's so damn important. And whether it be the financial side or just escaping the socialism that we tend to be attacked by at the moment, it's great. I mean, so many people are embracing Edge because of that exact reason. And what's interesting, on a little side note of that, is the amount of people who used to listen to 6PR
That are coming across the
are coming across to Edge.
Yeah.
We are finding quite a considerable number, or making it known to 6PR and to ourselves that they've actually crossed over. Now, I never sort of saw anybody as an opposition or anything like that, but it's interesting seeing 6PR have definitely changed their allegiance, right? They've definitely become very, very lefty, okay, of late. Once Liam
Bartlett.
Thank you, had left, that was sort of the catalyst. That was kind of the date where things changed there. And then since then, like, people are just are fleeing like you can't believe because they're sick of this lefty ideology. Now, I don't think everything from the left is negative. I think there's a lot of positive coming from the left.
Yeah, but don't just slam it in our face every 10 seconds.
Exactly. We don't need it in our face. We also, we don't need to be told how to think. What you need to do is use the old grey matter, take everything from each side. So I think, that's quite a compliment. And when people like, I'm trying to think of Rosie.
O'Donnell?
No. Posey Parker.
Yeah.
Rosie.
Okay.
Posey Parker, when she came and approached us about.
I find it
doing the
fascinating
story,
that her team approached us.
spot on. And
So I
because
thought that
why
was
did they
awesome.
say? They said because you are considered the last bastion of free speech in West Australian media, quote unquote.
And I have to say that you did a really good job interviewing her.
Thanks, mate. Well, we're not here about that. We're here about the greater wealth. But I think ultimately,
Look, I'd like to thank the speaker for interviewing.
well, while we're doing it, look, the interview that you did, let's face it, with
Melissa.
Malcolm Roberts, Melissa, was just amazing, absolutely amazing. So
Still can't believe you cut my comment.
yes, we catch absolutely.
What's wrong with bringing up zombies into that?
Because I'm all for free
perfect.
speech, but not stupid speech. Okay,
But just wait. We will get a zombie apocalypse, and then
Okay.
you'll go. You know what?
Sounds
Travis was
great.
right.
Well, I think this is where people are at, and I think where the population is that they're tired of if they question, they're labelled, right?
Yeah.
They're either labelled as racist, they're labelled as conspiracy theory,
theorists. Where's your tin hat?
and once upon a time you could have a great yarn debate
Yeah.
with someone over a coffee, a cup of drink, or whatever, and agree to disagree at the end of that conversation and
Spot on.
still be mates.
You know what? I don't mind being called a conspiracy theorist and all any isms that you can do. Just don't call me a flat earther. I'm sorry, they're batshit crazy.
I don't care. I just don't care. I will have a conversation with someone who's a flat earther. I have no worries.
There's one absolute argument against flat Earth.
What's that?
We have cats.
So knew you'd go there. Let's talk about gold standards.
Gold standards.
Because there's certainly none around here.
Look, it's really interesting. A lot of people thinking this is, people say this is conspiracy theory and all that sort of stuff. But it's the interesting little stories that slip under the door that people aren't seeing or being reported in the mainstream media that I like to watch. I like to find them and go, here's what's really happening. 3 congressmen introduced the gold standard bill to stabilize the dollar's value. Yahoo Finance reported on this in the US and Washington. America facing the twin threats of inflation, bank failures. 3 US congressmen in that environment have said, look, we need to introduce a pivotal sound money bill that would enable the Federal Reserve note dollar to regain stable footing for the first time in more than half a century. Now, I could go through their names. They call it the Gold Standard Restoration Act, facilitating repegging the Federal Reserve note to a fixed weight of gold bullion. That's what they want to do.
America hasn't got enough gold. They flogged it all off.
That's a very good point, but it's interesting because I can see ways around that and how to get around that.
Fool's gold.
You get Mark McGowan to do the mix.
Oh yeah, perfect. You know,
I can see ways around it.
yeah. Stop printing money.
And the way you do it, is you would look at what Abraham Lincoln did back in history.
What? Get shot in the back?
Travis, can we have a serious moment for a moment? Honestly, what he did. Well, all right. Backtrack to that. Why did he get shot in the back?
Because he was messing with the currency, and a lot of bankers would lose a lot of money, so they organised to have him assassinated. But that would be conspiracy theory thing, and I need a tinfoil hat, otherwise I can't say it.
Very good. So what did he do before that?
I have no idea.
What he did was, of course, he was the one who was financing the Civil War. He did not want to go. What's interesting about history is it often repeats, right? So the Mississippi Purchase, right? It was Louisiana. I forget which one it was.
Louisiana.
Hey, you're the
Louisiana
American.
Purchase, sorry. He sold that to Napoleon, right? Because
Hey,
he bought it off Napoleon, sorry. Napoleon sold it. You know why?
No.
Because he didn't want to go to the bankers to finance his war.
Oh,
In the Napoleonic War, because the bankers were going to charge too much interest for fighting. Of course, he wanted to take on Russia,
Sure.
the big onslaught, and establishing that, as far as Europe was concerned, a great French Revolution.
Yeah,
what,
well.
what Lincoln did was he basically issued the greenback. Now, the greenback was basically to the soldiers, and they could pay their taxes with it. He asked his treasurer at the time, do you think they'll accept it? And they said, if it is backed by the US government, it'll be good as gold. And that's what they did. They took
Isn't that where the term come from? Good as gold?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. And that's where the greenback came in, where they could buy and sell using a different currency at the time.
Okay.
Now, I look at that and I go, this is possibly what could happen in the United States is you do away with the US dollar and you set up a different currency. It's been done before. So
Roughly 70 years. No, I don't know how long ago.
So you could have as much of gold as you want and say, we'll have it all cut up in these fractions, kind of like what you do with Bitcoin. You can buy a little piece of Bitcoin and break it up. I see that, but a lot of people will look at this and economists will say this will never happen, this will never get through, and they dismiss it and they say the US dollar is not going away in a hurry. And I go, the fact that the conversation's coming up in the population indicates
where there's
something to
smoke,
me.
there's fire.
The fact that this bill is being put forward says a lot about where people's headspaces are going. And I think that's the takeaway from all of this, whether it happens, whether it doesn't, whether it plays out a different way, whether this eventuates or not. The fact that people are thinking this way.
Well, okay, let's look at
not
this
just
way,
thinking, they're actually talking, and it's made it all the way into Congress.
Of course.
So that's more than just 3 congressmen. I think this.
But let's think about this. Okay. Right. We always say the petrodollar. Okay, the US dollar, petrodollar. Right.
Yep.
They're trying to get rid of petrol. They're trying to, let's face it, they're trying to stop that market. Okay, they're trying to destroy the oil market. Well, certainly, Biden is.
Well, there's that, but they're also trying to depeg the US dollar from the oil.
That's kind of my point. Exactly right. So if the two of them are going to go, they're being broken apart. Plus, you've got all this, the BRICS side of things coming forward. You've got the fact that the Russians are selling energy in rubles rather than US dollar, all kind of carry on. I mean, look, I'm no economist by any stretch of imagination, but to me, every sign says that the US dollar is on its way out. It really does.
All right, let's think of another problem here. Right, you've got a massive economy, and they want to back it against something, not just faith and goodwill, but they want something physical.
Hopes and dreams.
They don't have enough gold because they printed way too much money and they sold too much to cover their debts.
Yep.
Does it have to be gold? Why can't they back it up against another type of precious metal, palladium, lithium, or something else?
Silver.
Why does it have? Do they have enough silver?
There's a lot of silver.
Is silver considered precious enough to back a currency against it?
Well, they use silver coins in the US economy in the past.
Yeah, true.
As common coin, and so yes, there is value.
They're
in that.
still in circulation now. I'm watching a couple of YouTube channels where the guys have vending machines, and they rattle it. They're like, "Oh, there's silver in here." And then they go through all the coins. Here it is, and it's like a 25 cents, where it's actually worth like $5 in silver.
Right.
So they go through. So they're actually still in circulation today.
They are.
So
and if you find one, you hang on to it.
yeah,
Sure.
they're worth a lot of money.
So essentially, okay, if the US dollar collapses, right, what does that mean to you and me? Okay,
It affects-
in really simple terms.
Okay, it affects everything. It affects central banks and how they relate to people. It affects what we exchange in. It affects how oil is traded.
Sure.
So it affects trading globally. Okay.
Yep.
And that's then you have to go. The US often leads in different things. So you go, well, how many countries will follow a US cue? So if the United States does something, so we're going to get rid of this.
Yeah.
How many are going to jump on board and go, that's a great idea. Let's do that.
Well,
Even if it's a bad idea, let's do that.
But it's Australia, we do whatever the US says, we do it, right?
So that's how I see it affecting other people and other nations. And I think there's a big shake-up going in relation to, and we've seen at the beginning of the show, of, the central banks have been a very secretive organization. We don't know a lot about them.
No, we don't.
And now the truth is starting to come out slowly but surely, and people are getting educated on this. So we're in an age of information. We're in an age of people re-questioning things and going, what are we going to do here? And the central bank has revealed its fear, at least it has in European, is that we want to still control this game. And we don't want another entity controlling the currency. Well, that to me is the heart of what's going on. Fear, greed drive the markets. That's
you sound like a crypto guy.
It's a stock market thing. The greed and the fear drives the market.
Yes, right? It's very, very strong for crypto as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, the cool thing is, talking about throwing it to the universe and then coming back, we've actually had someone offer to do the sales work. So I'm pretty sure it's on your Facebook because it's not on mine. Right. So we'll get that followed up off air.
Whoever you are, fantastic.
Can't it's just coming up Facebook user, so I'm not sure. Apparently, they can sell ice to Eskimos.
Oh, look, tell you right now.
So I'm ready. We need a salesperson.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll get you to follow that one up because it's on your stockbook.
Sounds good. Yep. Beautiful. All right, I think that's the show for this week, gentlemen. Oh, hang on, you got the mouth. You were ready to fire.
Come on. I'm just saying, I love this. You're getting salespeople for the greater wealth. Through the greater wealth.
I know, mate. Jeez, it's all about you.
I want you guys to prosper. It's fantastic. No, I just love it. Generally, I love celebrating when people prosper. I think we have to. We lose the mindset of tearing people down.
Yep.
If you have a win, hey, that's great. Let's celebrate. It's a genuine
The other
win.
thing that I really want to do here as well. So the whole reason we got Derek into this, we suckered him into it in the first place. I mean, he volunteered to do this. I mean, I begged him.
Yeah. There was gaffer tape, cable ties involved. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
A boot.
Police, I swear the police were not involved. So Derek runs an education course.
Yes.
Actually, quite a few of them. So if you do want to learn more about this, Derek does actually have some very, very amazing courses where he can teach you not only about how the basics of financial systems, but also options trading. Like very, very. I'm doing one of the courses at the moment. It's like, even I'm struggling to keep up with them. They're amazing courses.
He says, listen to him, talk himself up. As simple as that.
He's a smart guy.
He keeps calling me a hare for some reason.
A hare?
He tells me, you can do this. And then he's like, no, stop, sit, Bilbo, sit, come back, finish it to it. Yeah, anyway, so they're amazing courses. So if you are looking at alternative income streams or just working out why can't you get ahead, I highly recommend looking out to bluskyfactory.com.au. So that's BLU skyfactory.com.au and sign up to Derek's courses. What's the other one you've got? The Supernatural. No, what's it called?
Supernaturalfinance.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's also a free course that you can do. Derek,
it's a 6-month course that our team do that look at the spiritual from a biblical perspective of how wealth is connected and how it should be taught. So much of what the church has taught over the centuries is wrong. Right? We look at what does actual scripture say, and it's quite the opposite. It doesn't want you to be poor; it actually wants you to prosper. Right?
And stop apologizing for wanting success. I'm so sick of that in Australia. Do these courses, get this knowledge. Knowledge is power, right? And
you've got to know the rule book to get ahead. And so many people, especially the education system, the reason, just going back to the history, why I had no idea, it wasn't taught at school.
No, that's
when
right.
I went to school, we never touched history. So I don't know. If I want to learn history, I'll have to go do it myself. And there's so many things not taught in school because our education department has totally failed. So you've got to do it yourself.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and it's also because it's government regulated education, and the government, it's not in their interest in something for you to know certain things as far as the education is concerned.
They want as many slaves as possible.
So, absolutely. We need more people with initiative. We need people who want to step up and actually make the world a better place, right? Simple as that. Happy as that.
And before we run, we do have a comment from Josh.
And that comment is...
up on screen right now. No, USD collapsing will be catastrophic. It is the reserve currency of most Western nations. Effectively, all our nation's savings go to zero.
And also their debts, just thinking about that. So that's another little winner out of that one. All right. With that, it is the end of the show. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll see you for the replay on Sunday, but also we'll see you next week.
Sunday
it's a great world.
Saturday.